I am 71 years old, and I have 12 days left to live. I know that because I'm counting, not in my head, on the wall. There's a calendar hanging in my kitchen right now, right beside the refrigerator, on the same nail that's held a calendar in that spot for the last 20 years. It's the free kind, the one they give you at the hardware store in January, with a landscape photo at the top, and the days laid out in a grid below. Mountains, or a lake or something. I don't look at the picture. I look at the squares. 30 of them are circled in red marker. Harsh, deliberate circles, drawn with a hand that was shaking when it made them. 18 of those circles have a black X through them now. 18 days used, crossed out, gone. The X marks are uneven, some thick, some thin, some barely visible, because my hand trembles worse on certain mornings than others. But they're all there. 18 days I will never get back, marked in black ink on glossy paper, hanging on a nail in a kitchen that smells like coffee and early light. 12 squares are still empty. 12 white, unmarked boxes sitting inside red circles, waiting for the marker. The black marker is on the counter right now, cap off, lying next to the coffee maker, waiting for tomorrow morning, when I'll walk over and draw another X, and the number will drop to 11. I am 71 years old. A doctor told me I have 30 days. I've used 18. And I want to tell you something I couldn't see until the calendar started shrinking. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of how much living I wasted while I was alive. Let me tell you about the lie I built my entire life around. It's a simple lie, 2 words, and you believe it too. I know you do, because I believed it for 7 decades and never once questioned it. There's tomorrow. That's the lie. There's always tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll call. Tomorrow I'll go. Tomorrow I'll say the thing I should have said today. Tomorrow I'll start living the way I keep promising myself I will. I treated days the way most people treat tap water, like they were infinite, like they just kept coming, like every midnight the supply refilled, and I had another 24 hours to waste, postpone, defer, and push forward. I lived as though the calendar had no last page. And I never, not once, thought about what would happen when I flipped the page and found nothing behind it. My wife wanted to travel. She'd been talking about it for years. Portugal. She wanted to see Portugal. The coastline, the old churches, the tiles on the buildings. She'd saved articles. She'd shown me pictures on her phone. She'd say, "When are we going?" And I'd say, "When things slow down." That was my answer for everything. When things slow down. As if life was a highway that eventually exits into a rest stop where you can finally do all the things you put off while you were busy driving. Things never slowed down. They just stopped. My daughter lives in Seattle, 3-hour flight. She invited me every Thanksgiving for 6 years. Every year I said, "Next time." Not no, next time. Because next time sounds like a promise. It sounds like you're planning. It's the most dangerous phrase in the English language because it feels like a commitment, but costs nothing and means nothing and buys you another year of doing exactly what you're already doing, which is nothing. My brother and I stopped talking in 2014. An argument about our mother's estate, money, property. The kind of argument that feels like it's about assets, but is really about pain so old neither of you remembers where it started. He said something, I said something worse, and then silence. 9 years of silence. I told myself I'd call him when the time was right. The time was never right because I never made it right. I was waiting for a feeling, some internal shift, some emotional green light that never came, because forgiveness doesn't arrive on schedule. You have to go get it. You have to drive to it in the dark with no map and knock on the door, not knowing if anyone will answer. I treated forgiveness like a luxury item, something I'd purchase when I could afford the emotional cost. I treated joy the same way, something to schedule for later, after the responsibilities were handled, after the bills were paid, after the urgent things were done. But the urgent things are never done. They just multiply. And while I was handling them, the important things, the people, The moments, the words, sat in the margins of my calendar, penciled in, never inked, pushed to the next page, and the next, and the next, until there were no more pages. I lived as though the calendar had infinite squares. It didn't. I just never flipped to the last page. A doctor did it for me. Now let me tell you about the night I made the calendar. I need you to feel this room. I need you to stand in this kitchen with me in the dark and understand what it's like to hold a marker in your hand and draw the shape of your remaining life on a piece of paper. It was the night after the diagnosis. Earlier that afternoon, I'd sat in a doctor's office. Beige walls, a desk covered in folders, a computer screen turned at an angle I couldn't read. The doctor was younger than my daughter. She sat across from me and spoke the way doctors speak when they've rehearsed the delivery. Steady, measured, compassionate, without being soft. She said, approximately 30 days. She said, palliative. She said, comfort-focused care. She said words that were designed to land gently, but landed like stones dropped into still water, one after another, sending ripples through everything. I drove home. I didn't turn on the radio. The silence in the car was physical. I could feel it pressing against my ears, filling the space where noise used to be. The steering wheel felt different under my hands, not because it had changed, because I had. Every texture was sharper, every seam in the leather, every vibration from the road. My senses had woken up violently, as if my body, upon learning it was ending, had suddenly decided to pay attention to everything it had been sleepwalking through for decades. I got home. My wife was already asleep. The house was dark, except for the small light above the stove. That warm amber glow that kitchens have at night. The light that's always on. The one nobody turns off because it makes the house feel like someone's still awake inside it. I stood at the counter. I took the calendar off the wall and laid it flat. The current month was open. Some of the days had notes on them. A dentist appointment. A reminder to pay the water bill. Small administrative marks on days I had treated as ordinary and would now give anything to have back. I picked up a red marker from the junk drawer, uncapped it. The smell of the marker hit me, that sharp
chemical, slightly sweet smell that markers have, the kind of smell that you associate with school projects and labeling boxes and all the mundane, unremarkable moments of a life that is still in progress. I counted forward. From the diagnosis date, day 1, I counted 30 squares, and I circled each one by one. The marker tips squeaked against the glossy paper, a small, high-pitched sound, almost musical, almost absurd. I was drawing circles around the remaining days of my life, and the sound it made was a squeak. Not thunder, not weeping, a squeak.
The refrigerator hummed behind me, that low, constant drone that you never hear until everything else goes quiet. The clock in the hallway ticked, each tick suddenly distinct, suddenly separate, suddenly countable. I could hear my own breathing, in and out, in and out. And for the first time in 71 years, I heard it not as a background function, but as a countdown. Each breath was a unit of time. Each exhale was a subtraction. I circled the last square, day 30. I looked at what I'd drawn, 30 red circles in a row, marching across the grid like a corridor. A hallway with walls made of red ink, getting narrower the further you looked, ending in a blank wall, no door, no exit, just an end. I hung the calendar back on the nail, stepped back, and I stood there in my kitchen, hands flat on the counter, staring at 30 red circles, and I understood something so clearly it nearly dropped me to the floor. Every uncircled day behind me, every square I'd already lived through, every Monday and Thursday and Sunday I'd used up over 71 years, had been a gift, and I'd treated every single one of them like junk mail, received it, glanced at it, tossed it aside without reading it, without opening it, without realizing that inside each one was something I could never order again. 26,000 days, give or take. That's how many I'd been given. And I'd spent most of them looking past the current one towards some future square that I thought would be better, bigger, more convenient. I had lived my entire life in the margins, and now the page was almost full. Today is day 19. 12 squares remain. 12 red circles without an X. I've made some calls. My brother answered. The conversation was awkward. Two men who hadn't spoken in 9 years, trying to find words that could bridge the gap without making it worse. It was short, under 10 minutes, but he answered. And when I said, "I'm sorry it took this long," he was quiet for a moment, and then he said, "Me too." 2 words. 9 years of silence broken by 2 words that could have been spoken on any day, any Tuesday, any afternoon, in any of the 3,000 days I chose pride over connection. My daughter flew in last week. She sleeps in the guest room now. She hasn't gone back to Seattle. She won't say why, and I won't ask, because we both know why, and naming it would make the air in this house even more fragile than it already is. My wife sits closer to me on the couch now. Not dramatically, just a few inches. She used to sit on the far end with a book. Now she sits in the middle, close enough that our arms touch. She doesn't say anything about it. Neither do I. But we both feel it. The closing of distance that should have closed decades ago. The house has changed. People move through it differently, softer, more deliberately, as if the floorboards have become sacred ground, and every step should be placed with care. The air feels fragile. Sounds are quieter. Doors close gently. Voices lower. The whole house has become a whisper. But the calendar is merciless. It doesn't whisper. It hangs on that wall, and it speaks in red ink and black X marks. And every morning I walk to it and pick up the marker and draw another line through another day. And the crossing out takes 2 seconds, and the weight of it lasts until the next morning when I do it again. I stare at the remaining squares sometimes, 12 of them, clean, white, unmarked, sitting inside their red circles, like empty rooms waiting to be filled. And I understand now, with a clarity that only a deadline can give you, that each of those squares is more valuable than anything I have ever owned, more valuable than the house, more valuable than the savings account, more valuable than every object in every room I've ever lived in. 12 days, 12 chances to be inside my own life instead of planning around it. The red circles mock me. They mock every trip I postponed, every word I swallowed, every "I'll do it tomorrow" that turned into a year, that turned into a decade, that turned into a calendar with 30 circles and a marker on the counter with the cap off. Now I'm talking to you. You have a calendar on your wall, or in your phone, or in your pocket. You looked at it this morning, probably. You glanced at the date the way you glance at a clock, automatically, without weight, without meaning. You saw the square for today, and you didn't feel anything. You didn't hold it. You didn't marvel at it. You scrolled past it like it was a repeating background image that would always be there. It won't always be there. You have a number. You don't know what it is. Nobody told you. No doctor sat you down and counted your remaining squares and gave you a red marker. And you think that's a comfort. You think not knowing means not worrying. It doesn't. It means you're spending something you can't count and assuming the account will never empty. The call you're postponing, make it today. The trip you keep pushing to next quarter, book it today. The person you haven't spoken to because you're waiting for the right moment. There is no right moment. There is only this square, this one, the one you're sitting in right now, reading these words, breathing air you didn't thank anyone for. I have 12 squares left, 12 mornings with the marker, 12 chances to cross off a day and know, truly know, that I was inside it, that I didn't waste it, that I said the thing and held the hand and sat on the couch close enough for our arms to touch. You don't know your number. That's not a comfort. That's a warning. Because I wasted my squares when I had thousands of them. Thousands. And I spent them on oil changes and conference calls and arguments about money and silence that I called patience and postponement that I called planning. You're wasting yours right now. Put down this screen. Pick up the phone. Walk into the next room. Say the thing. Do the thing. Be in the square you're standing in before someone circles your last ones in red and you finally see what I see, that every day you ever had was the day and you just never noticed.